So this is where I've been parking the truck at here recently, and as you can tell, it's not here. So the other day I told you that he was doing some strange stuff. At least in my opinion, it was strange. At the time, I thought it was strange. So if it would sit overnight, completely cool down, it would, you start up the fan, radiator fan would instantly kick on. The oil pressure would shoot all the way to max. The air conditioner wouldn't work. And the thermometer, coolant thermometer, would not come up. It was pegged it all the way down. So I just, for some reason, thought it was the computer. Anyway, I reset it, and now it's to the point where I just had to disconnect the battery cable after I come home. And the next time I want to start, I hook the battery back up. But I was concerned that we were, me and Carolyn were going to be out in the middle somewhere, truck full of groceries, and something happened to it. So I called the mechanic, and we had a brief conversation, and the lady who answered the phone didn't think it was the computer. She thought there was a code in which I was resetting every time I disconnect the battery, which I know that you can reset codes when you disconnect the battery. I know that. But it never coded on me. So I don't know. So I thought these items that I just mentioned were all unrelated. But check on that dog. She goes out in that road. She's okay. I thought all these things were unrelated, so I took it over to him. I'm explaining to him what happened, and he says, well, they're not unrelated, really. The engine will go into safe mode if it thinks there's something wrong with the cooling system. So when you reset it by disconnecting the battery and put it back together, you're overriding that safe mode. But everything ran fine once I reset it. So he says it's most likely a sending unit, temperature sending unit. So, and the Colorado has two. One on the thermostat itself, it's attached to the thermostat. Now, 2 years ago, I replaced the thermostat, and 2 years before that, he replaced the thermostat. The guy that has it now. They just keep failing for some reason. So I guess it's just one of those, Chevy Colorado flaws. And then it has another one, according to what I can find, underneath the radiator. If one of those, when it cools, see, there's how does it work? The computer says, okay, this is what the temperature should be, and then the sending unit says this is what it actually is. They should kind of match within a few degrees of each other. If they're not matching, then it goes in that safe mode. So I took it over there, and he says, well, we'll keep it for a couple days to try to get it to code. Well, I don't think they're going to get it to code. I just don't think it's coding. I think it's just going into safe mode. I don't know. So anyway, today they started up. They couldn't get it to code. But he is pretty convinced it's one of those sending units. So I asked him, is there any way I can get it back on Saturday so we can go to town and then bring it back to you? And he says, she said, we should have it back to you before Saturday. So that's her goal. So hopefully we can have it fixed. It does sound like it's going to cost a lot of money to fix, a few $100s, which is okay. So I'm kind of disappointed in myself. I couldn't find anything on Google. I'm looking at the dog, just so you know. Couldn't find anything on Google that would suggest why all these what seem to be unrelated issues, what it could be. Google just didn't have any idea. However, when I said bad sending unit, could it cause these issues, it said, yeah, sure can. Well, I just didn't think of the sending unit, so I guess I could have replaced it myself. I've replaced the thermostat. That is pretty hard to get to be honest. You got to take the tire off. It's hard to get to, and it just takes patience, but I can do it. I could have replaced both of them. I actually have another thermostat in the truck itself, so I just keep it for a spare. Oh well. Which kind of brings me to today's thought. So here I am working on my own truck, and I got a comment the other day that says, Well, why did you get to do all these things? Build your own house. You've never built a house before. You build a house. You work on your own truck, but then you complain when people get on Facebook and they don't know what to do, so they ask questions. There is a huge difference in what I'm complaining about and what this person is suggesting. What I am complaining about, that if you take customers, if you're getting paid to do the job, you better know how to do the job. I have never been paid to build anything. Not a tiny house, not a shed, not anything. I've never been paid to work on a car, ever. I get paid to work on lawnmowers. That's because I know how to work on lawnmowers. But I don't get paid to do all these other things that I've done, work on wells. And so I don't see the connection. If you want to do it on your own to learn a trade, by all means. If you want to learn how to work on a lawnmower, go get a free lawnmower off Facebook Marketplace, or go get pay for one that's in relatively good condition that you can fix up and flip it. It's the best way to learn. And that way, you don't have a customer. If you can't flip it, well, you just lost your own money, no big deal. And if you can flip it, well, then you can sell it. That's the best way to learn if you want to learn off YouTube and Facebook and all that. And there are guys on there that ask some of the silliest questions, the silliest, on Facebook. And I try to help. Just today, I answered a question. He said, it'll start with starting fluid, but it won't start any other way. Once it's running, it runs fine. Well, that's an easy problem. It's a choke. Your choke cable is not adjusted correctly. Easy solution, easy fix, easy diagnostic. I didn't criticize him. I just said that's what it is. But if a guy who said, I have a customer that has a lawnmower and I can't figure out what it is, I have to use starting fluid to start it up, and then it runs fine, should I just tell the customer to use starting fluid? That guy doesn't need to be... I don't care if he works on lawnmowers, just not a customer's lawnmower. Well, the other day, I don't remember what day it was, I was telling you that a guy on YouTube charged $35 because he put a carburetor on a weed eater that didn't run. It had a burned up engine. This gives other mechanics like myself a bad name. People don't want to trust a mechanic. Heck, I don't trust this mechanic. I try to trust him. I've taken my car to him before. He did a fine job. But I have a hard time leaving my truck there and not calling him every 5 seconds, say, hey, what's going on with my truck? So I understand why people don't trust me. It's because these other people are just bad mechanics. Years ago, kind of a unrelated but related story. Took the truck in, my wife's truck actually, my ex-wife's truck. What did we have fixed? I can't remember. Oh, she said the brakes were squealing. And she wanted to get them looked at. That's fine, we can get them looked at. So we took the brakes in, and he said the brakes were fine, there's nothing wrong with the brakes. But you have a nail in the sidewall of your rear tire. What? I mean, I maintained that truck really well because she was a real stickler about that truck. So I rotated the tires when they were supposed to be rotated. I mean, I was really picky about that truck. So I really didn't believe that there was a nail. So he takes us back in, and sure enough, there's a nail in the sidewall of the truck tire. Well, he drove the nail into it. He wanted to sell tires. That's what their primary business was. We ended up buying 4 tires while we were there. So, I don't trust people. What I should have done was say, no, I'll put a spare on it, drop it down, I'll put a spare on it, and we're going to take it over to Walmart. That's what I should have said. I should not have given him that business. I mean, there's no way I can prove that he did it, but I shouldn't have given him that business. Why should I have done that? But, you learn your lessons. And I really want to somehow stop these people from working on lawnmowers that have no idea how to work on them and charging people to work on them, even though the thing they're working on is garbage. watched a video today, kind of unrelated, but it's something that worries me. So this mechanic I watch, he's an actual car mechanic, made a video the other day and said he had a customer come in and they said, he said, "Hi, John." He called him John Doe. He didn't want to give his real name. "Hi, John." And John Doe said, "My name is not John. I demand respect. My name is Mr. Doe." Oh, okay. So he brings it in, and the rear end shot on this truck, and so they say it's going to be $2,000. They don't work on it. They don't do anything. They just look at it and say, okay, this is what it's going to cost. So the guy says, Mr. Doe says, "Well, I'll pay you $1,000 cash, and I'll give you $100 a week." And the owner of the shop said, "No, we don't extend credit to a customer that won't let us use their first name." I thought that was kind of funny. Well, fast forward a few days, and now today's video, he makes a video and says that guy called, John Doe. And it says, "You owe me a new transmission and a new door on my truck." He says because park on the transmission, park, doesn't work. It's broke. He says, "I had it towed to my driveway. I put it in park. I went out and I was looking at it, and I had the door open, and it started to roll backwards. The door was open, hit my other car, and ripped the door off my truck. So I'm going to have a mobile mechanic come out here and fix the rear end on my truck, and then I'm going to bring it over to you so you can put a new door on it and fix the transmission." Well, here's the thing. The gears in the rear end are stripped out, so they're not grabbing. So you can put the transmission in park, but the rear end is what's slipping. Not the transmission. Once you fix the rear end, the transmission's going to work fine. So I always worry about customers like this. You know, I'm going to get a customer like that. But I've figured, no, I'm not going to get a customer like this because I'm pretty cautious with their attitude right up at the beginning. I've told you a few encounters I've had. I had one guy come up and he, well, I mean, it's a long story, but in the end, he brings this lawnmower over and it's got big holes in the deck, and he wants me to get it running. It won't run. And this thing's probably 30 or 40 years old. It's a very old lawnmower, and the deck's bad. And I said, "Well, you know, that's pretty old." I said, "I won't be able to find parts for that, so I can't work on that one." Well, then he shows me this other lawnmower. It's a newer lawnmower. He says, "Well, let's get this one running." I said, "Okay, yeah, we'll get that one running." And after he talked about that one for a second, he goes back to it and he says, "No, I want you to work on that." I said, "No, sir, I'm not going to work on it." Okay, so then he talks about the newer lawnmower again and comes back and he says, "I'm going to have you work on that." And I said, "No, sir, I'm not working on either one of them." And I put both of them back in the truck, shook his hand, and said, "Have a good day, sir." Because I could see that he potentially was going to be a problem. Just like this Mr. Doe. Mr. Doe was real arrogant, and everything was going to be his way. And I just struggle with that kind of behavior. So I even asked Carolyn, "Are you okay with me turning down customers right at the get-go if I think there's going to be a conflict later?" And she said, "Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's better than having to pay for a new transmission and a door. I mean, I'm sure they're not going to have to pay for it, but I don't want to go through the court system to find out. You know, because you got to hire lawyers and all that stuff, and I'm just not going to do it." So, well, that's kind of my story for today, and I'm sticking to it. So if you'll click this up next box, take you to a video over my other channel. Really appreciate it if you go check it out. So if I can inspire you to do without your truck for a couple days, so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.